That, look at
See.
that.
Are we back?
Let's see. Are we back, you guys? Oh, it looks like we got movement again. That's good.
Whoa, that was
Thanks
quite.
for holding out for us.
Sorry for the interruption there. That was quite the detour.
Yay, good. All right. I'm seeing Leslie,
It's working.
Kevin.
Awesome.
Great. All right. We are back. And hopefully the mics are working now too, instead of us just talking in the open air. Okay. So what are we talking about today?
Okay, we're going to be talking about our favorite books thus far from 2025, the books that we've read here in 2025. So these are not books that necessarily came out in 2025. As far as I know, I don't know if any of these came out in 2025, but they're our favorite books that we've read. Also, we'd love to hear your favorite books in the chat. Yeah. One of the first questions I saw was any book recommendations for, I think it was medication-free childbirth. Something along those lines in a hospital setting. I think you saw that, right?
Yeah. Look at that.
Yeah, you could probably, I'm
well,
probably not the right
people
person.
are saying the Bradley method.
That's the one labor and delivery book I've read.
So we'll recommend that one, the Bradley method. We read specifically chapter 8 every single time we go into labor. I say we. I feel like it's a very...
No, you're doing all the work there. But prior to our firstborn, I knew nothing at all. And your water broke, and you literally like shoved the book in my face, and you're like read chapter 8 and any additional chapters that you're able to read.
Well, at that point we were newlyweds, so I feel like we were doing like everything, like, okay, read a little bit every night before bed, and you like do everything together when you're newlyweds. And yeah, anyways, and then you just flip to the back of the book where all the pictures were, and you were like traumatized. Like, I came back into the room after calling the midwife, and you were like, is that what's gonna happen to you in like a few hours?
Nice. Hi from rainy Tacoma, Washington. Hey, we just drove through Tacoma yesterday. That's crazy. Drove right. The kids love seeing the Tacoma Dome. They always point it out. But we're back in Idaho now, and it's raining. Hello, though. Okay, so we're going to jump in. I'm going to start with, I've got some nonfiction, fiction. I'm going to start with one that I've been going back to. So I read this maybe 6 months ago.
Well, sorry. Someone says they're still having audio issues. Is everyone else's audio working? I'm going to turn this on for just a second. Can you hear? You want to say something?
Hello. Let's see how this sounds.
Oh. Is audio working? I'm going to turn this on.
That sounds good.
Okay. Ours is working. There you go. I was like
great.
muted.
Nice.
All right.
So we'll just jump into these. Does that sound good?
Yeah, let's
Okay,
go.
let's jump in. So the first
one.
one.
Let us know if you guys have read these.
Yes, the first one I'm going to talk about here. It's written by Stephen Pressfield, who's known for his great fiction writing, right? He writes thrillers, and I actually haven't read very much, maybe one. I've maybe read one or two of his fiction, and that's what he's known for. But he wrote this nonfiction, the War of Art. Okay, not to be confused with The Art of War by Sun Tzu, but obviously it's a play on words there. So the War of Art, in the subtitle, break through the blocks and win your inner creative battles. So he's coming at this from the perspective of being a writer, but this book really is applicable to anyone trying to follow through on any commitment that they've made or that they want to make in the future. And so he addresses, commitment to a workout plan, to a diet, to starting a business, to making progress in relationships, having these breakthrough conversations, and how it really is the war of art. He talks about what's the word he uses? Not interference. He uses oh
yeah, what is it? It's like a friction.
Yeah, it's not friction. What's the word? It's because it comes up all the time. Yeah, but basically there is always resistance. Resistance is the word he uses, and this occurs anytime you're doing something of value. And the greater value it is to yourself, the more resistance you will feel at various points in the journey of growth in that area. So for instance, for writing, there's just this resistance to get you, that's keeping you from sitting down and making progress on whatever it is you want to write. The resistance that appears, and then he goes into great detail of how this resistance shows itself, right? With various distractions and procrastination, or things that seem good to you, but they're not the best. Right. So you're getting distracted by these good things. That's not the best. And he gives you so many practical tools to break, like the subtitle says, to break through the blocks and win your inner creative battle. But like I said, if you don't view yourself as a creative and you just want to make progress in your health or, in your relationships or in a business that you're starting, I couldn't recommend The War of Art high enough. It is a little bit, so he's not a Christian, and it is a little bit, I would say, more crass than what I would prefer in some of the way he communicates.
I was
Uh,
gonna say maybe a little new agey too.
and a little new agey, yeah, because the way he
So
refers to God is just not the God of the Bible and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So, anyways, yeah, you've read this too, Katie. Do you
Oh
enjoy it?
yeah, I know. I loved it. I feel like it's one of those books that there's books that are like really souped up and everybody's like, "Oh, you have to read this book." And then you read it and you're like, "I don't really get what the big deal was." And I do think this has all the breakthroughs in it that you're looking for when you pick it up.
Yeah, I think so
So
many
I
of
don't think
us
it's overrated.
we see things through a rose colored glasses when it's in theory, right? Like my workout routine is going to be so fun. I'm going to be, I'm going to have all the perfect workout clothes and I'll be feeling motivation, inspiration. Same with writing or recording music, making music. And so when you hit those moments of not feeling inspired, you think something's wrong. And he's here to tell you, like, that's exactly how it should feel.
Mhm.
Like you should celebrate when you feel that resistance because that means you're doing something of great value. So embrace that feeling. This happens, I think, just in home management. It happens in parenting, where you're thinking like, man, this isn't what it looked like on Instagram, or this isn't what it looked like on,
Mhm.
or it's not what I thought it was going to feel like when I saw it on Pinterest. And you're like, oh wait, this is resistance, and this is really good.
Yeah. So super profound book. Okay, I'll grab one here. Surprised by Joy. So this was a book club read that we all did, and it's basically it's called The Shape of My Early Life by C.S. Lewis. And something we do in book club is we go around and different people get to pick the genre. And so one gal, she was trying to get us to all pick a C.S. Lewis book, but I forget what she said. She said like autobiography or something a little too broad, and she was disappointed with all of our suggestions. So it's like, just say it has to be a C.S. Lewis book. And this is the one that we ended up picking. So it's all about his conversion story. And it is fascinating how it was such a mind over matter commitment for him, and that Lewis didn't feel emotion, like he didn't feel he was saved. He didn't want to be saved. He refers to himself as the most reluctant convert in all of England,
Hmm.
I believe. And yeah, the most reluctant convert in all of England. And so, anyways, it was just inspirational on a lot of levels. And I enjoyed hearing more of his story through his own words. It was like there are parts of it that were really heartbreaking. And yeah, anyways, they just have it all bent up. So many different things. I think it's really profound from a atheistic perspective, because I think we hear how knowledge leads us away from God. It can. And that was definitely like what happened. Intellectualism kind of led him away from God, but it's also what led him back. So, anyways, God can use anything.
Wow, yeah, that is so cool. We do have such a reasonable faith, and
Yeah,
that
we
was a
do.
fun one to be. I haven't read that, but I felt like I got to experience a lot of it with you because you
Mhm.
talked about it a lot as you were reading it, and just the
As one does.
exactly. That was kind of, I mean, that was an impetus to both of us diving more into philosophy because the book is such a, I guess, a narrative of his philosophical journey to becoming a
Mhm.
Christian. And so he's just referencing people that he's reading and then the people he's having conversations with that are authors or philosophers. And so it was fun to be introduced to them.
Oh, yeah. Super inspirational.
Okay, I'm going to go for a fiction here. This was one of my book club reads, and that's Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. And the first Dostoevsky book I read was Brothers Karamazov, and that one was just a lot. It's a big book, right? And that one, to me, that was my first. I think that was my first like Russian author too. I hadn't read any Tolstoy at that point either, and it was so confusing because everybody's got like 7 different names, and so just as they're setting the stage, kind of setting the plot in Brothers Karamazov, it's easy to get discouraged and overwhelmed because you're like 200 pages in and you're just starting to like be done meeting the first character in his 7 names. And so that was really discouraging. However, Crime and Punishment is not like that at all. So if you're thinking about like dipping your toes into Dostoevsky, I think Crime and Punishment not only is it's shorter, and it's also a lot more direct and to the point. Okay, like you just jump into this action packed story, and I really do like the moral dilemmas that he, Dostoevsky's known for really steel manning different arguments, right? You've got the Grand Inquisitor, in Brothers Karamazov, who is, Ivan, the intellectual, just trying to pick apart the I guess the logic of Christianity, and there being a creative designer, and you're sitting there reading it and you're like, whoa, this is really good. It's challenging yourself. And then he comes back, and I don't know, like Alyosha is able to combat it, or Father Zosima with so much depth in
You're
following
acting like I
chapters.
know who these
And
names are.
and this one, I feel like he does the same thing, but just a lot more in my mind. Like I feel like so much of all of his writings over my head, but this one felt very attainable, where you could just pick it up and you're like, okay, I think I know the points he's making here, and it's a very enjoyable story at the same time. And I would even say a very happy ending. That's which is nice, right? I'd say it's a very life-giving, hopeful ending. And ultimately, to me, my big takeaway was like, without the conviction of the Holy Spirit, we are we cannot we're not going to be reasonable people. We're not going to handle our sin in the way that it needs to be handled, and that is, repenting from it and turning to Christ. Without the intervention of the Holy Spirit, we're just so prone to hardening our hearts and justifying our wicked behavior.
Nice. I really want to read that one. That one's
Yeah.
on my book list. The Brothers Karamazov is not on my like desire to read list. That sounded really hard, and I don't
It's
know.
really long. Yeah.
Yeah, it was long, and I feel like you loved it at the end, but it's like hard to get into. And so, anyways, sorry, I just like put that down there, and now I'm kind of regretting it.
That's
Did you
okay.
pick it
You want me to pick it up?
Yeah. Is that okay? Thanks. Yeah, it's fun to see you guys what you guys are saying here. I saw someone say that they moved the C.S. Lewis book back up to back up to the top of their book list.
Nice.
Isn't that the thing? It's like you read books and then I don't know. It's like I have to set a limit on myself for purchasing books so that I read the ones that I purchase, and then, which I feel like we're actually pretty good at doing.
Yes.
Don't you think? Like our house is filled with books, but it's like if someone walks through and is like, oh, this, or I noticed this, or I read this, it's not like, oh, it's just a pretty book. It's like, oh, well, let's have a conversation about it.
Which is really nice.
That's like the goal of our bookshelves. We don't want them to just like be full of books. Okay, let me see here. This one. So this was a thrift store purchase. I came home. Do you remember what I was going to the thrift store to purchase?
I don't know. Probably looking for baskets.
Probably.
Yeah.
It's a good guess. And I found like 12 of these books, and they're the Harvard classics, which I like. And I ended up buying all of them. So anyways, it was like all or nothing. And I just recently gotten into philosophy. And so this one has Plato, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius in it. So it's kind of a fun little smattering of Socratic dialogues, and then not but Socratic dialogues, and then the Stoics. And so this was my introduction. So I read the Apology of Socrates. This was the first time I realized, no way, Socrates never wrote anything down, and Plato never wrote anything in his own words.
Like
he always wrote it as Socrates. So it's just kind of interesting because it's like, where's the man and where's the myth?
Right.
You know what I mean? But anyways, so that was really fun to read the Apology. I was just really impressed by the fact that Socrates didn't try to escape. Like so many people were willing to get him out of the city. He was going to have to die for his teaching, and he didn't want to leave Athens because he believed the law, and that's what he was teaching. Was like he stood by the law. And I'm like, how often am I showing the kids that I am just kind of getting away with stuff like, oh, I could go faster at the speed limit here, no one's watching here, but he like believed what he taught so much he was actually willing to die for it. And he's like, I don't want to live like that's not admirable for my kids to see their father like in hiding. And obviously in some situations that would be admirable, but from his point of view, it does seem very admirable that he just like stuck it out and died, which is just was kind of noteworthy for me, especially in our culture where survival is always the goal. So, and all the hero stories are always about the survivors, where the ancients, all the heroic stories were always about them dying well. Isn't that fascinating?
It is fascinating. And I do think, I think Christians have really elevated the voice of the martyrs, and like Christians that have died well and they've died for their faith. That is something that I want to do more and more, and really elevate them to our children, because it is wild how in the West survival becomes the ultimate goal, rather than dying well, dying in the faith, dying in a way that not just for your own pride and like selfish legacy to live on, but in a way that honors the Lord and furthers the gospel and advances his kingdom. I think that's something that should inspire us.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting clash of worlds too, because we already did a video. You guys watched it, most of you probably, the Stoic Mother, kind of talking about a few things that we took from Marcus Aurelius. But let me see. So this was one of these books. This is just like the difference between, you know, like a modern cover and then like this is so much more cool to hold, but I feel like you also have to like get yourself into it a little bit more than when you see this cover. You're just like, oh yeah, clearly it's like a cool book, but then it's also like, I don't know, it's just kind of interesting, the pros and cons to reading old books versus new literature. But this is Marcus Aurelius Meditations, and that was in here, which I highly recommend. But it's fascinating to see secular and Christian history collide, because Marcus Aurelius, while he was a very admirable man in a lot of ways, Christian persecution was going on during his reign. Um, remember the first martyr? Can you
Oh,
guys
what
help me
was
out? Do you
his
guys remember the
name?
first martyr in the Roman Colosseum, or the first documented martyr? I think his name's
Polycarp?
Polycarp,
Yeah, I think it was
yes. So Polycarp, I believe, happened during Marcus Aurelius's reign. So I don't know exactly what his relationship was with Christians, if he like vehemently hated them, or if he just like kind of allowed that to go on. It was like whatever, the people have their entertainment. Um, Anyways, but so it's just kind of interesting to see it from that perspective. He didn't believe in our God, but there's a lot in here that a lot of character that I really want to grow in. And then there's the Credo and the Fido in here too. But
Wow, nice.
yeah, so lots of great things.
Those are great. Okay, I'm going to talk about a couple real quick because they kind of are adjacent to one another, and that is the preparation. There's three authors to this one: Doug Casey, Matt Smith, and Maxim Smith. This is a book that Katie's father, Chad, recommend. I know he didn't just recommend; he sent me a copy of this book. I'm always grateful. Actually, there have been some life-changing books that I've just received in the mail from Katie's father, Chad, and I'm always so grateful for it. And you know, you were talking about like having a list, or maybe somebody in the chat was, it's like, I've got this list of books that I'm trying to get through.
Mhm.
And I think everybody has that running list. And without fail, you know, somebody like Katie's dad recommends a book and it's like, well, this takes precedence, right? That's the power of a good recommendation, I think, or a recommendation coming from somebody you really admire. And so this one was moved to the top of the list when I received it. And it's kind of set up almost, it's because it's not just like a straight reading book. There is some like tech, like workbook kind of tools to go through as well. And so it's a little bigger. I don't love reading books like this. They kind of stress me out when they're big and bulky like that. However, the content really is inspiring. I will say this, you know, if the first part of it is really just bashing the modern day college system, which I think most people kind of are aligned with, when it's like, yeah, 99% of the college experience is not something worth pursuing. I feel like he just goes and goes and goes and goes. So it takes a while for him to get into his point, I think, on this one, where it's like the first chunk, you're like, no, I get it, man. Like, I'm not a huge fan of it. But then he really lays out this alternative path of growth for anyone that's looking for growth. And I think it's really geared towards younger men younger than me. But I was very inspired by it. And I think really just anybody that wants to grow and find vision, this is a helpful book, The Preparation. And then he recommended greatly in this book. Well, there's a huge reading list from this book. So talk about your reading list growing. When you read The Preparation, your reading list grows immensely. But one book that he talked about that I never read was Louis L'Amour's autobiography, or just kind of a memoir, really, that written by himself. And I've always loved Louis L'Amour. You know, I don't know how many Louis L'Amour books I've read, 50 or more, who knows. Um, but I never read his memoir, and it is gripping. I'm so inspired by just the way he's able to retrospectively go through the different seasons of his own personal life and what he was learning and what he was reading and the time and history that he was alive in. So really recommend this one as well. And that's called Education of a Wandering Man, and that's the memoir of Louis L'Amour.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun. I don't know if our like game plan is necessarily like alternatives to college or whatever. We're kind of like a both and kind of people, I feel like, with everything in our lives. But I feel like even though we would like our boys to continue in their education formally, academically, I should say. I do think, like you said, there are just so many awesome resources for, even if you're pursuing that route, becoming an interesting, well-rounded person outside of that.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely. And really, I think
Sorry, can I
what
grab
this inspires in me is lifelong learning. And I guess it's a book that made me feel younger. Like I read it and I was like, man, if the Lord blesses me with more years of life, then there are so many interesting things here in this earth to discover that are a gift. And I do think that the Lord just gave us just an incredible world that we dwell in. And it really does bring him honor and glory, I think, when we seek out his creation and enjoy it and give him glory for it.
Yeah. Emily here says, I'm glad I'm not the only one who cares about the vibe of a book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the vibe really matters. Yes. And this is another Emily, but we do use thrift books. It's fantastic, a fantastic resource. And I'm glad I have some fellow basket lovers here. Shelf Around the Corner, which is just like really a cute name, says, I'm addicted to thrifting baskets. It's the greatest struggle in our marriage.
Nice.
So we aren't the only ones. Okay. I'm seeing here though, Lauren, you're here from Norway. You probably know about this book. Tell me if you do. Okay, so have you ever heard of Kristen Lavransdatter? It looks like Lavransdatter, but that's because I think I don't know. I think it's maybe Swiss. I read the whole giant book and don't know where this is located. Okay, it's like Scandinavian, Swedish, Denmark. Like they're mentioning all those places in here. And so I don't know if it's kind of around the Norwegian area too. I think they're all up in there. But this was a crazy read. So when Gal in our book club, everyone was giving recommendations and we read a book a month and she pulled out this, everyone like panicked and was like, I am not going to be able to read that. But it is so captivating. She's like, I haven't been able to put it down. So we picked it and I'm so glad we did. I felt like I got so much history about the countries that I can't remember to tell you about. But no, it was like a totally different vibe. This like, Norwegian, again, like Scandinavian vibe where everyone's like blonde and blue eyed. And it's this very interesting time in history where there's paganism and then there's the Catholic Church moving in and Catholicism's kind of mixing with paganism and you have the politics of the time. And it's very fascinating. So this was a recommendation by, who's Brian Suave's wife? Or Lisa or Linda or
the Bright Hearth podcast. Yeah, Brian Suve and his wife.
Anyways, his wife said she would read it as a maybe with her daughters is like a
warning.
Yeah,
or like
what is it? Cautionary tale. A cautionary tale.
Yeah.
And so then I feel like this has been really circulating the like classical moms groups. So I don't know. Let me know if you guys ever read this book. It is a wild ride. I had like such a knot in the pit of my stomach while I was reading it. And it's kind of how this gal ends up picking her own husband instead of marrying who her dad had for her. And the crazy thing is by the end of the book, I'm not really sure anyone was a great option in the marriage situation, but I also see how she really could have made either of these marriages work. Even the guy that she ends up picking for herself could have worked if she hadn't just like kept holding on to this like bitterness and resentment. And they just kind of had an immature marriage their whole life, which is unfortunate. But it was very convicting. It was a very convicting read. So anyways, it's a big book. And it's like, there's like parts where you can't set it down and then it gets like a little dry. And then it's like, oh, great. Now my stomach's turning again. So I can't like totally recommend it.
Yeah, it is.
It might throw you for a loop.
It's heavy lifting. That is quite the book.
Yeah. I know Elisha put up with me. Like there were 2 different weekends where I just sat around almost all day. It's like, I'm sorry. I just have to read this. I like got up to make meals. It's been a long time since I've just read that intensely.
2 of my favorite books from this year, both nonfiction, The Things of Earth by Joe Rigney and Strangely Bright by Joe Rigney as well. And these are like, if you're going to read, they're very similar, I guess. Like one's like a more condensed version and one's just a more drawn out version of the same concept. And that is, in like basically honoring God by enjoying his creation. And then one of them says, can you love God and enjoy this world? because I think, that hymn, and the things of earth grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. And he kind of pushes back and he's like, well, no, actually, when you look at the gospel through the lens of, all things being made new, you're able to actually see the beauty of God's creation, especially when you're freed from, I guess, the oppression of sin, right? Sin obviously still exists in this fallen world that we live in, but we're not enslaved to it as Christians, right? We're not held captive like we once were. And so, anyways, very fun, life-giving books, I would say, both of these.
Oh yeah, they do there's a totally different perspective on things than what I always grew up thinking.
Right.
Yeah, so I think it's very encouraging, and I love when a book takes something that is just commonly believed in our generation and then is like, well, have you considered this? And
Yes.
that's totally what that book does.
Nice. Lexi, Brian and Lexi Suve.
Oh, there you go. We got the L.
Nice. Yeah, we'd love to have them on the podcast. I think we've reached out. They were open one time, but it didn't work on our end. But yeah, they've got a great podcast and awesome content.
This is great. Have you heard of Thomas Aquinas College? So actually, yes, because lots of small, tiny colleges we know about. It says you're letting us know that there's 400 students, and you said you spend 4 years studying books like the ones you're talking about, which is, I know, like my dream. Like in another life, I just go bury myself in academia. But the wonderful thing is it is accessible to us lay people. Like whatever we're doing, we can just read the same fantastic books.
Well, we get to learn so much with our kids too.
Yeah, that's
when
really
you're
fun.
homeschooling.
And learn so much together.
Yeah, I feel like this in many areas of life, not just academia. In music, in teaching the kids fiddle, I feel like I'm rediscovering it's a newfound love for fiddle and just for music. And same with being with the boys outside. I feel like a little boy again in so many days when we're out building fires and building shelters and getting our packs all ready for a hike. It's really fun.
It's pretty special. Okay, so I heard Autumn Kern recommended Kristen Lavren's Daughters. See, it's just going around.
Nice.
I love books Autumn recommends. And then thank you for letting us know. And okay, I haven't observed much Catholicism in Norway, or did I understand? I don't think it's specifically Norway. I think this was Scandinavian, actually.
Okay.
But aren't they all kind of up there together? It's okay. I'm picturing it. I need a map, but I'm picturing Norway and Denmark. I'm sure if you're over there, there's this sounds like so ignorant, which it is. But like when people picture the United States of America, they picture we're all together over here and there's 2,000 miles, right, between some of the states. So that's kind of how I picture like Denmark, Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden, all up there in a little cluster. But I'm sure it's like light years different what one country is versus the next country. Okay. Let me see here. Okay. The bend down, get up. This was actually a recommendation by Autumn Kern. So I'll bring this up. I'm in her community for women, and this Norms and Nobility book, a treatise on education by David Hicks. And wow, this just, I'll be honest, I'm not totally all the way through this book yet, but he presents a fascinating and very convicting case for the virtue of a classical education. And the virtue, basically, I want someone to tell me, this is fantastic. Keep reading old books and reading them to your children. Okay. And so he confirms what I wanted to hear. So I am satisfied with David's take on life. But I think it's just really beautiful how he shows how myth and legend and Socratic dialogue and all these things build virtue in humanity. And he connects that to modernity and how we function in the modern world. And so instead of because I think I was questioning this, it's like, hey, like with STEM and science and all the mathematics and, all the things there are to study, the computer coding, the AI, are we just kind of setting our kids up to be like totally backwards in today's world where they're like, well, I read this really old dusty book, and they really should just be like learning how to use AI. So I think I was kind of questioning that.
Right.
And this just convinced me that a classical education is going to win any day. In
Nice.
terms of satisfaction, self-control, just the whole person being able to capably function in any environment, to be able to add value in that environment, to have a high moral code in that environment, and to just function well with whatever the tools of the day are. So as our children are adults, I trust that they will be able to get into scientific fields if they desire to do that with this foundation. So anyways, it's kind of cool. I couldn't pull all the threads for you right now. I feel like reading to understand is one thing, and then reading to be able to communicate it is a whole new level of understanding, and I'm not there yet. But anyways, highly recommend this book. This is a difficult read, I would say. It's skinny, but it isn't like an easy read that I just like pick up and flip through. But
Yeah, I feel like as we're in, one of these historical, monumental historical moments where, that's not been experienced before, at least not documented, where AI is coming in and just everything's changing so rapidly. I think you really have to start thinking about, okay, who are we as people? Like, are we building individuals that know and serve God, that have character? Because as technology solves more problems, we're faced with the uncomfortable reality that we human beings are the greatest problem of all. And
Elisha's quoting himself there. He has written that down, and I think it's a phenomenal statement.
But it is, well, I think it is
It's
true, because you start realizing, oh man, just accomplishing the task maybe actually wasn't the goal in the first place, or maybe we're missing something by simply accomplishing the goal and not thinking about the person we're becoming and how we're accomplishing the goal. So by optimizing everything and through efficiency, we're forced to ask ourselves, like, who are we becoming? Like, sure, we're growing in productivity and efficiency, but to what end? Like, what are we becoming more productive at? What are we becoming more efficient at? And I think that we're considering that as we're raising up children to, Lord willing, be leaders and engage in a very new world, right? It is going to be a brave new world in many ways that they're going to be living in. And AI and technology is going to be playing a huge role, it looks like, in the life that they live. And so we want them to be well-rounded people of character and of faith.
Yeah.
Okay,
You
I'll go
said that
next.
really well. Yeah, we're just going to sit here and
Nice.
just marinate on that.
No. Okay, another fiction. Again, I think I've read 4 Ernest Hemingway books, and The Old Man and the Sea. This is my second time reading it. It is such a short read, so it's real. I mean, it's very, look at that, very, what is it, like 60 pages or something? It's very short, maybe 90. I don't know. It's a very short book, and it is such a treat. It is just so fun for me to read and to get, I think, a unique insight into the human will. And yeah, he paints such beautiful pictures too. Ernest Hemingway does. And I will say, I haven't loved, I'm like 50-50 with the 4 Ernest Hemingway books that I've read. I've loved 2 of them, and I've loved, and I've hated, like just not enjoyed at all 2 of his books. And so, but this is one that I just read like 2 weeks ago. The Old Man and the Sea. I feel like it's one of those books that you should, because Hemingway is, one of the greatest American writers. It's good to have some knowledge of his work, some working knowledge. And why not do The Old Man and the Sea? It's so short, it's brief, and it's just a great read. So I recommend this one.
Yeah, that's on my list to read to the kids, and I still have not done it. Oh, okay. Question here. What's the other Hemingway book you enjoyed? Do you remember?
Is it with the guerrillas fighting in
The Fighting Gorillas.
the guerrilla warfare in like Spain? Was that For Whom the Bell Tolls?
Oh, is that
Because
it?
the sun, I did not like The Sun Also Rises, and I did not like yeah, I think it's For Whom the Bell Tolls. Yeah,
Did you like
for,
For Whom the
yeah,
Bell
I think
Tolls? Okay.
I get the titles mixed up, but I think it was The Sun Also
You have a
Rises.
50-50 chance of getting the right one. Oh wait, why did you not like the other one?
Well, it was just these hipsters, like, that were expats living in, in Paris, and it was the set was like, just was a weird set, and it was, I think the point, it was supposed to be depressing, but it served its point, in making me depressed. So maybe somebody can help me with the title of these different books, because I get the titles mixed up. I feel like the titles, apart from The Old Man and the Sea, that one's very descriptive. You're like, oh, I know what this one's going to be about. The other ones, like For Whom the Bell Tolls, or The Sun Also Rises, or what's the what's the other one? The titles aren't very descriptive. Anyways,
Well, yeah, I don't know any Hemingway, so I couldn't help you with that. Okay. Here we have. Okay, so this funny thing for the book club, right? We had that Kristen Lavransdatter book, and then the same gal that recommended Kristen Lavransdatter, I think, felt bad about it or something because she came back with this recommendation. Look how skinny this one is.
nice.
But it was a welcome breather. We voted her in again, and this one's called Killer Angel, a biography of Planned Parenthood's Margaret Sanger, and it is, it says a shocking look at the abortion industry's patron saint. I don't think that I really thought this woman, I don't think I was very shocked. I honestly might have been expecting a little more drama in her life. She was like the classic feminist who wanted sexual liberation and wanted to, was racist and didn't really have any scruples, was just ultimately selfish, really, was ultimately selfish and highly motivated. She seemed like very zealous. And I think for anyone who has to start a Planned Parenthood size organization, it's kind of who I pictured. Very zealous, very sexual, and very, evil.
Depraved.
Depraved. Yeah. So anyways, so I feel like the author, George Grant, there's obviously a ton of books about Margaret Sanger. And I think it's obvious. It's just funny how people, when they decide that they want to side with someone, they really try to just whitewash them and make them seem great. But the funny thing is that the things that she stands for, people aren't just trying to whitewash her. All of culture is saying all those things are great. They are saying sexual liberation is great. Society as a whole still is, even though they say they hate racism, but virtue signal, are still racist when it comes to social programs. So anyways, it's just not that much of a surprise that she champions people who hold her same values. Anyways, so it was an interesting read, I think, primarily because George Grant is a phenomenal writer and uses excellent vocabulary. And so I enjoyed reading his writing very much. And if he was writing about a cardboard box, I would have enjoyed it.
Love it. Thanks, Katie, babe. You know what's great? I just saw this. The Passive Purple Four-Ball, the book on
Passive Purple
what's crazy?
Four-Ball?
Four-Ball. Yeah, Four-Ball. Yeah, you don't want to be that. You don't want to be it. But it's a book on manly dominion. And I read that in a book. This was, like Joe Stout and Isaac Freeman. Yeah, we read that
did a
12 years
listener
ago.
just recommend it?
Somebody just recommended that one. I was like, man, I haven't heard that book for years, but I need to pull that back out because it's been a long time. I mean, I don't think I own it. I kind of want to get a copy of that one again.
The Passive Purple Four-Ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that one sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. I think, yeah, well, this was before a lot of things, before I was married. And so anyways, I would be really interested to read it, as a married man.
Is it about being like a passive husband?
It's about manly dominion. So
okay, so
what do you tell me?
Now that you're married, you're ready to just
take dominion.
Take dominion.
Yes.
Yeah, now you're gonna know if you're a Passive Purple Four-Ball or not when you read it. I mean, you aren't, but I'm just saying it will be confirmation.
Yeah. You think I need confirmation? Is that what you're
I was saying before marriage, you don't know what marriage is going to be like, right? So it's kind of just like, yeah, whatever. Of course, I'm going to put my foot down.
Nice.
I don't know.
Okay, so The One Thing by Gary Keller. We mentioned this earlier this year, but it's another one of those, I think between The War of Art and The One Thing, they're really just would they be considered self-development books, business books?
Yeah, self-help.
Self-help, but they are very, and I know that a lot of self-help books, self-development books are kind of hocus pocus, and I don't think they're that helpful. These ones are. I just stand by these. They are so practical, and they really write in a business context. At least Gary Keller does, being a businessman that's built, very successful. Keller Williams. That's the Gary Keller of Keller Williams Real Estate. But yeah, just really helpful to prioritizing your life is just, I'm sure many people can relate. The number of directions we can take our life really feels, limitless. And so narrowing it down is very liberating and necessary. If we're going to make progress, we've got to start focusing in on less and less and less and start making progress in those things that matter. So The One Thing by Gary Keller, I would recommend.
The One Thing. It does help solidify the one thing. When we went into this year, I think we read that in January again. And I think we've read that a lot of times.
Nice.
But then he goes into, kind of the one thing in business or the one thing in your relationships. And I think I started to get kind of overwhelmed. So just like pick one area and then pick one thing. And then I feel like it simplifies it even more.
We are hoping to do an episode with Katie's parents when we go over for Thanksgiving. Yes, we were literally just texting them today, seeing if we can go over a day early and record an episode with them. So I'm glad you want that to happen too, because we want that to happen as well.
How can you see that far away? Okay, someone said, I think you did not enjoy The Sun Also Rises.
Yeah, I need to look these different titles up.
Yes. Look at you guys. You remember all the way back to last year's Thanksgiving episode? That's awesome. Was that the last time we interviewed my parents? A year ago?
It was, yep.
Wow. Yeah, times fly.
Yeah, it was The Sun Also Rises. You guessed that correctly. That's the one that I did not enjoy. So I probably am not smart enough to understand it. You never know if you're the kid calling the emperor, naked, or if you really are not smart enough to get certain things. That's what's so tricky about literature, because I do not hold like my intellect in very high esteem. And so when I don't get something or don't enjoy it, I usually think like, well, I'm probably missing something here. But every once in a while, I'm like, I wonder if this is not good. I wonder if this is just not very good.
Well, I think sometimes once you have a brand like Hemingway, it's just like, you can get away with a lot.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then this is the last one I'm going to share with you. This was Anna Karenina, and this is by Tolstoy. And I read this the week before I read Kristen Lavransdatter. So it's kind of funny timing, because it went from one cautionary tale right into the next one. And I wrote like a big Substack on this, so I'm not going to go into it right now. But it was, it was, again, it had me on the edge of my seat. I was so upset. I think I wasn't upset really with the Anna Karenina gal, because she just didn't really, I don't know, I didn't have my hopes up for her from the start. But I think I did when other people's lives started entwining with hers. I started stressing out about this lady. She's going to break up the relationships I did care about. So anyways, it was a great read. I read War and Peace in 2020. I got super depressed. I had COVID. It was the most depressed I ever was. And I don't know if it was the COVID or the War and Peace to this day. But anyways, so I haven't picked up Tolstoy again until this. And I really enjoyed Anna Karenina. So.
Nice. Yeah. I know we almost went through that one for our book club recently.
Did you really?
Yeah. Okay. So I just realized that I think Isaac, is that you, Isaac? I can't tell what your handle is, that recommended the Passive Purple 4-Ball. And that makes sense, because I read it with you. I'm just now realizing that. I think that's Isaac that said that.
Oh, that's funny. Like back in Centralia?
Yes, Isaac Freeman.
Growing up. Oh, that's crazy.
Yes,
Look at that.
And then another one. Elisha, have you read the book called Garden of Peace by Rabbi Shalom Arush? It was recommended to me by a Christian for Christian fathers or newlywed men. I've not read that one. I'll have to look that up.
Garden of Peace?
Yeah, I've never heard of it. Never heard of it. Nice.
That's great. Thank you, guys.
Yes, we would also like to have Katie interview her mom again sometime too. Somebody asked if we could do that. We'd love to do that. Yeah.
It's funny because Elisha was bringing up all these things when we go visit my parents, and he's like, we need this interview and this interview and this interview. And I was like, let's just go and do Thanksgiving and forget all about
which we might
interviews.
End up doing. Yeah.
But it is that thing where it's more work. But it is really sweet to be able to have those memories and my parents' wisdom, kind of captured, and be able to offer it for you guys too. So anyways, that is where we are leaning. But I will say in this moment, I am like, I just want the family holiday to be the family holiday, but they're so willing that they're totally down to do it. So
yes,
that's nice.
Wow. Okay. What are your favorite books about diet/healthy food, Katie?
Easy. 2, Deep Nutrition. That's kind of on the foundational level of how you can change your kids' genes by what you eat as a mother, and then how they can change their genes by what they eat growing up, which is just mind blowing, because I think we think, well, we have our genes and they are what they are and they're weak or strong. And so we can't do anything about them. So anyways, it makes you really convicted. I think the two biggest takeaways for me for that book, from that book, were seed oils, which are now everyone knows to avoid, but it's easier said than done. You kind of have to make everything yourself.
Yeah.
And then highly, processed and refined sugar. So anyways, there's that. And then the biggest thing for just overall weight loss, which you can do healthily or unhealthily, is monitoring your glucose levels. So that'd be the Glucose Revolution. And she shows you how you could eat whatever you want and still lose weight, which I'm not a huge fan of, because you're going to eventually pay on the nutrition side, right? If you're just not spiking your glucose, and so you're trim, but you're also, rotting from the inside out. So I don't want to do that, but it's also a pretty awesome kind of like just simple life hacks that you can do with really good food. So anyways, would you say something else? I know you've read Deep Nutrition.
Yeah, Deep Nutrition was life-changing for me. I should probably read that again, because why not have another life-changing experience, especially if it's for the better. It was for the better the first time, and I can only imagine it being for the better again. Another one that it's a little different, by Dr. Ben Lynch, called Dirty Genes. Similarly, kind of going into some of the propensities that we have based on our genes, and how we can combat those. That was helpful for me as well. But yeah, I'd say those two. Yeah, I'd say those two are I would recommend.
Okay, here, one of you guys is saying there's a book called The Liberal Arts Tradition that has the same message as Norms and Nobility, but is a much easier read. So that's cool. And then, Katie, have you read Wisdom on Her Tongue by Lexi Sauvé? It's so good and practical. So I didn't actually know Lexi was an author until this week, when I went to a homeschool conference, and her books were, she'd put some books up for like a raffle type of situation. And so anyways, I was like, no way. Because just reading the table of contents, I was very captivated by what she had to share. So I'm excited to go peruse her website, because I haven't read anything that she's written, but it sounds like she's written a few books. So I'm excited to check those out.
Awesome. Well, folks, thank you all so much for listening. We're going to sign off here. Thank you for being a part of this over in the chat. Always love hearing from you in real time. And yeah, we'll hope we're going to be back next Thursday. Okay. So hopefully you're back with us next Thursday, going live.
We won't be back on Thanksgiving live though, right?
No, we're not going to be live on Thanksgiving Day, unfortunately.
But we're hoping that will be my parents' episode.
Yes, hopefully we can post that on Thanksgiving Day. That would be fun.
That's kind of our goals. That's going to be the Thanksgiving episode. So that gives you guys a little taste about what's coming. And actually, if any of you ladies are in the Get It All Done Club, I'm doing my monthly live there in 1 hour.
Nice.
So
someone says, Elisha, top fiction recommendations for a Christmas gift for my husband. I have to go. Yeah, they're going to go through this video again, look for the names. What would you say, Kate? I mean, if you, Lord of the Rings, I think, are great. But you have to be somewhat willing to embrace, fantasy in that world. I think it's not fantastical like so fantasy is. Like people that are not into fantasy enjoy Lord of the Rings, I guess. So those books are great. I really enjoyed Musashi. That's about a samurai, Japanese samurai, and it's just really kind of like a journey through his life. I don't know anything else.
When we do buy books, like for a treat, for a birthday, for like a special event, we do like to get Easton Press books, because they're leather books. You could justify kind of a more expensive, you aren't just going to buy that. At least we aren't going to just go buy that book for like, oh, I just want to read it, so I'll buy it. You really think through it, and it's more keepsake. And so our most beautiful books are Easton Press for birthdays or things like that.
Yeah, I'd say some of my all-time favorites. And again, I don't know if this is, when you say for a Christian, like, Tolkien, being a Catholic, is going to have a lot more Christian elements to his writing in Lord of the Rings. Musashi's not going to have any Christian elements to it. And then, but something that one of my favorite books is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. Same thing, it's not like a Christian worldview, but it is just really fun and inspiring. And then same with, I'd say, all of the Three Musketeers. It's like, it's not like there's parts of those things that are like not admirable about their characters, but it is adventurous. This is just a really good time, when you're reading those books. Yeah, I don't know anything else you can
That'd
think
be
of.
great. Okay, Arthur Conan Doyle here. I love Arthur Conan Doyle, but
Yeah,
you're
those are
saying,
really fun.
is this okay? I'm gonna butcher this. Is it Marcotte Deep? Marcotte
What are
Deep.
we looking at?
This. Can you see it up there? I don't know how to pronounce that but anyways, I've never heard of
Okay,
that,
so
but I
it's
do love that's Sherlock Holmes, right? Arthur Conan Doyle.
yeah, I think I've only read the Sherlock Holmes
Yeah.
from Arthur Conan Doyle. So we'll have to look at
Those
that.
are really good.
Yeah, that looks really interesting.
Okay, and someone's saying a kid's favorite book video would be so neat. So maybe we'll try that again.
Love
later.
it.
But
Love it.
thank you guys so much for being on here.
All right, guys. We'll talk soon.
Put it in my
Bye-bye.
shirt. Bye.